Okay, good morning everyone. Good Chodesh. Chodesh Tov. We are on Pei Samud Beis on the bottom line. So we said yesterday that when you have a korban and you bring it Shalol Lishma, so it still remains with the requirements of that korban. You just have to go ahead and bring another korban. So for example, an Asham Mitzorah, you still have to bring another Asham, the Mitzorah. But even though a regular Asham does not usually need Nesachim, when we've been saying Nesachim yesterday and today, we're basically saying it could either be the wine libations or it could be the Minchas Nesachim, the Korban Mincha, both of which come with many Korbanos. So it could be and both or one, but since a Asham in general does not require Nesachim, but the Asham of Mitzorah does require Nesachim, the Mincha and or wine libation. So when you have this Asham Mitzorah that was brought Shalol Lishma, not for the sake of an Asham Mitzorah, he's definitely not Yotzei. He definitely needs to bring another Asham to be Yotzei his requirement. But the Gemara is saying that we're going to treat it not like a regular Asham, but like an Asham Mitzorah. You still treat it exactly what you had brought it for, even though you don't get credit for that. So therefore, just like an Asham Mitzorah needs Nesachim, even though a regular Asham doesn't, this guy who brings the Asham Mitzorah Shalol Lishma then needs to bring a Mincha and a wine libation as well. And then we gave other examples where you do it Shalol Lishma. If you bring a keves, which is supposed to come with the Omer. So we know that the keves, which comes with the Omer, you have the Omer, and then separately you have a keves, and with that keves you have another mincha. So that mincha that comes with the keves, that comes with the Omer, that mincha needs double the amount of flour. So if you bring that keves Shalol Lishma, you need to bring another keves for the Omer, but now the mincha that you bring with the keves, do you bring it as a regular mincha or as a mincha that has to be brought with a keves with an Omer? It says, you still treat this animal as a keves that's brought with an Omer, even though you're not yotzei the mitzvah, even though you need to bring another keves for the Omer. You still treat it like a keves that's brought with the Omer, and therefore the mincha that you bring will have double the amount of flour. And same thing by the tamid shel shachar, shem tamid shel bein arbayim, where there's a requirement for the kohen or two kohens to put a certain amount of wood on the mizbeach. Even though over here you're not doing it lishma, you still treat it like a tamid shel shachar, tamid shel bein arbayim, even though you need to bring another tamid shel shachar, tamid shel bein arbayim again, but you still treat the one that you brought shalol lishma as a tamid shel shachar, tamid shel bein arbayim, and therefore the kohen still needs to do what he needs to do by regular tamid shel shachar, even though this is not quote unquote counting as a tamid shel shachar. So the Gemara then asks, why do we only mention Asham Sheshachtu Shalol Lishma and Asham Mitzorah? Why don't we mention the other examples, which remain, again, what they were originally intended to do? So Abaye said, Chad Minayu Nakat. We just chose one example, but the other ones are also examples as well. Rav Amar, no, they're not examples. Because Bishlama Hanach, Olos Ninhu, Ilo Chazula Ovachova, Karveli Olos Nadava, he argues. And he says, no. By the other ones, the Keves, or the Tamid Shel Shachar, Tamid Shel Bein Arbayim, those are Olas. And when you go and you bring it Shalol Lishma, it goes from being an Olas Chova to being an Olas Nadava. And therefore, you do not have to treat it as if it was a Tamid Shel Shachar. You do not have to treat it as if it was a Tamid Shel Bein Arbayim. You do not have to treat it as a Keves Haba Ima Ola, that a Keves Haba Ima Omer. And therefore, you treat it like a regular Olas Nadava, which would not have any of these special requirements. Again, you still have to bring an Asham Mitzorah, you still have to bring another Tamid Shel Shachar, you still have to bring another Tamid Shel Bein Arbayim. But as opposed to the first opinion, you would say the reason that it didn't list the things as requirements that you need to keep the initial requirement is because you don't. Because in these things, since they could be brought as a nedava as well, you don't need to go ahead and you don't need to treat it like the original thing. You treat it as that which you made it into by making it Shalol Lishma, as opposed to an Asham Mitzorah, which is what? Which is an obligatory one. Since it's not a nedava and it can't come as a nedava, if you have the Asham Mitzorah Shalol Lishma, you need to still treat it as an Asham Mitzorah, and therefore you need to bring it with the requirements with the Nesachim, even though a regular Asham does not get Nesachim. Good? Elahachi lo mokmis le b'milsei asham nidava mi'ika. If you don't treat this as an asham mitzorah, what are you going to treat it as? If you don't treat it as an asham, what are you going to treat it as? No other things, no other requirement. Therefore, the asham mitzorah, yes, he needs to bring another asham as well, but the one that he brought Shalol Lishma, he still needs to treat it like a regular asham mitzorah, which is a chiyuv, and therefore he needs to bring the nesachim with it, even though regular asham would not. Tani kavas Rabbi Yochanan asham mitzorah sheshachtu Shalol Lishma. If you shech the mitzorah Shalol Lishma, shech the asham mitzorah Shalol Lishma, o shelo natan midamo al gabe behunos, or you don't put the dam onto the big toe and the thumb of the mitzorah. Hareza ola lagabe mizbeach v'tao nesachim v'tzarech asham acher latiro. You see, you need another asham, but you treat it as an asham mitzorah, not like a regular asham. You treat it like an asham mitzorah, and therefore it needs the nesachim as opposed to an asham mitzorah. Good? Says the Mishnah. Kol midot shebemikdash hayu nigdashos. Bless you. Chutz mishal kohen gadol shahaya godsha letocha. So the Tanakh says, and seemingly everybody's going to agree to this, we had dry measurements and we had wet measurements. We're dealing with dry measurements now. All of the dry measurements in the mikdash were nigdashos. That means that if you needed to have an isarona flour, the vessel would be, can I have that vessel, please? The little one. The little one. This vessel would hold...
There's oil in it.
There's oil here, I know. This vessel would hold 0.9 of an isaron, and the additional 0.1 would be heaped on top. Or it would hold 0.8 of an isaron. If you would fill this and just fill it and level it, it would be 0.8, plus the top part is another 0.2, therefore the isaron includes, so it's heaped. All of the dry measurements, when you say you have an isaron measurement, it was heaped. That means that in order to get an isaron, it needed to be also including the flour on top, which is obviously going to be kadosh as well. However, when it came to this Kohen Gadol, it sounds like the Tanakh is saying his vessel was a separate vessel and it was a little bit bigger. His vessel actually held an entire isaron on the inside of the vessel, and therefore it was level. So if you looked at an isaron, if you looked at the flour and you saw that it was level, you knew that it was the Chavite Kohen Gadol. If you saw an isaron and it was heaped, you knew that it was for any other mincha. That's the Tanakh, and nobody seems to argue. Now we have back to what we said the other day. If you remember, we spoke about in a liquid vessel, but we'll speak about a solid one also. Again, the vessels that were for liquid, what did we say? When you fill this up with shemen, what happens a lot of times? Some of the shemen pours over. We said according to Rashi, it sits on the lip over here, but I wanted to learn like the other Rashi that it actually goes over and it goes to the side, like by Havdalah. So you have the stuff that's on the side. How do we treat the oil that drips over into the side? Again, there's enough oil in the inside here. We're talking about the liquid ones. The solid ones were not exactly Isaron. You needed the heap. By the liquid ones, you didn't need the heap. There's no such thing as a heap. But if some of the Isaron, again, let's say it held an Isaron plus, the stuff that flows over, the overflow, how do you treat that? Is that kadosh or not? What do you do with it? Do you just wash it off? Do you throw it out? Do you have to gather it? What do you do with it? Says the Gemara, Midas halach beirutzei and kodesh. The overflow is kadosh, it's kodesh. The liquid that overflows on the side is going to be kodesh. Umidas hayavesh beirutzei and chol. But any flour, again, besides for the isaron that you have here, any flour that then goes off the heap, assuming you have extra, or let's just use, again, easier to understand, the example of the Kohen Gadol chavitin, where it's just level. Any flour that then goes over, any overflow that falls out, or any flour that goes off the heap, which is no longer part of the isaron, assuming that you have enough in the heap. So what do you do with that leftover? So the leftover lach, the overflow lach is kodesh. The overflow yavesh is not kodesh, it's chol. That's the Tanakama. Rabbi Akiva Omer, midas halach kodesh, lefichach beirutzei and kodesh, midas hayavesh chol lefichach beirutzei and chol. He doesn't seem to be arguing on the Tanakama. He just seems to be giving a reason. He says, why is it, and we'll see that there's actually a nafkamina, but right now it seems like he's just explaining the Tanakama. Why is it that the overflow of the lach is kodesh? Because the lach itself is kodesh. The liquid inside is kodesh. Why is it that the overflow of the yavesh is not kodesh? Because the yavesh itself is not kodesh inside the kli. We'll have to see what that means. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi seems to agree as well. However, lo mishum zeh, it's not because of that reason. I agree with both of you. I agree that the overflow, we'll see in a second if it's true, but right now, I agree that the overflow lach is going to be kodesh. I agree that the overflow yavesh is not going to be kodesh. Why? Not because the yavesh itself is not kodesh. We'll see that he's going to say the yavesh itself is kodesh. Why is the overflow not kodesh? Because the lach is nekar, vayavesh eno nekar. What happens when you have overflow yavesh? What happens? It never went into the inside of the vessel. Even if the inside of the vessel is kodesh, the overflow never made it into the inside by definition. It just went on top, it never made it inside, and it fell off. When you have overflow liquid, so you might think that when I have a Havdalah candle, or when I have a cup, or when I have this shemen here, and I pour, and it's to the top, and now I pour a little bit more and it drips over. So you might think, what's that? That's the part you just poured in. No, it's not true. It's not the part you just poured in. It's a combination of all of the liquid that was in there. That means it displaces some of the liquid. The chances are, and it's true, because if you pour in the middle of the thing, what's coming out is not what you just poured in. What's coming out is liquid that was already in there. It displaces other liquid that was already in the cup. Therefore, by definition, it makes sense. If it was already inside and it was kadosh when it was inside, by definition, when it overflows, it's going to be kadosh, because it's that very liquid that was kadosh that's now overflowing. Let's see the nafkamina between them.
Yeah, I think when it talks about heaping, I don't think it necessarily goes out of it. It's just higher up.
No,
like
there's, one second. There's two separate things. We're talking about the midas hayavesh being heaping. What that means is that in order to get an isarona flour, it needs to be like this.
Right.
That's heaping. That's not the same thing that we're talking about now. That's the heaping. Okay. Now we're talking about beirut sehen. Beirut sehen is not the heaping. Beirut sehen is that besides for the heap. Beirutzein is that from the liquid which has no heap, the liquid that overflows, or any of the solid, which again I said it's easier to understand in the case where there's no heap, because if the solid is falling from the heap, then you're losing some of the Isaron. But if there was extra, or let's say in the case of the level, where it's totally level, where it's an Isaron, if any then overflows, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the overflow. The heap itself is definitely kadosh. Even though it's not in the thing, it's part of the kli. Says the Gemara, first of all, the Mishnah, which says, Kol mido shebemikdash were heaped. What does that imply? That there was more than one vessel that was heaped. All of the vessels were heaped except for the one of the chavitin. Again, the vessel was the same. It's just that the question is, how big was the vessel? What? Chavitin was the minchas chavitin of the Kohen Gadol, the one that he brought in the morning and in the afternoon. Says the Gemara, money, who is this? Rabbi Meir, if the Tanakh is Rabbi Meir, chad gadeshav. What does it mean? All of the kalim, you would use them and they would be a little bit less than you required and you'd have to heap it. He holds there was only one that was heaped. There was one that was heaped, which was used for all of the minchas. Again, the kli is not heaped. The kli is a regular kli. It's just that it has 0.9 on the inside, and you have to have a heap. That means, by definition, you have to heap the flour that's in there. So what does it mean? It couldn't be kol midos. You see over here, there was only one. Rabbanan chada u'malchukava. According to the Rabbanan, there was only one kli, and there was only one isaron measuring vessel, and it wasn't heaped at all. You never heaped. It was actually level, and it actually held an entire isaron. Says Gemara Mefchisel Olam Rabbi Meir. It's Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir held again that there were two vessels. There was one vessel that held exactly an isaron. That's what the Kohen Gadol's chavitin flour was put in, and therefore there was no heaping. The other one held, let's just say for argument's sake, 0.9 of an isaron or 0.8 of an isaron. Therefore there was 0.2 that was heaped up. Why does he say kol midos? He doesn't mean that there were other measuring vessels. Rather, my kol midos, kol medidos. All of the measurements were done with this one measuring thing for all of the minchas, except for the minchas chavitin of the Kohen Gadol, which was used with the other one, which was a tiny bit bigger. Okay, we're in the Gemara. Mr. Friedman, Sadi Amid Aleph in the Gemara, the two dots. Midas alach berutzei and kodesh. We're talking about when you have a vessel where you put the oil in. So if some of the oil overflows and it goes on the outside of the vessel, that oil is going to be kadosh. B'mai kamiflagi. What are they arguing about? The Tanakama and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi. It's actually a three-way machlokas according to the Gemara. Tanakama savar midas alach nimshecha bein bifnim bein mibachutz. Why is it that the overflow from the lach is going to be kodesh? Because they went ahead, and again, we said the other day that not every single kli needed to be mekadesh. You didn't have to purify, you didn't have to sanctify every kli. But if you sanctified it, whichever part you sanctified would make whatever was put in it sanctified. So for instance, if you sanctify the inside of this kli, whatever I put on the inside becomes sanctified. If you sanctify the outside of this kli also, then whatever overflows and touches the outside becomes sanctified as well. So what did they do? Why was it that the midas halach was sanctified? Says the Tanakama, Savar midas halach nimshecha bein b'bifnim mein b'bachutz. The lach, this thing which held the lach, this was sanctified both on the inside and the outside. Therefore, when you put in the oil on the inside, it became sanctified, and whatever overflowed became sanctified as well because it touched the outside, which had been sanctified. Midas yavesh nimshecha mibafnim v'lo nimshecha mibachutz. The midas yavesh is only sanctified on the inside. Therefore, any flour you put on the inside becomes kadosh. Anything that overflows and touches the outside doesn't become kadosh because, again, the outside wasn't sanctified. That explains the Tanakama why he says midas yavesh berutzehen is going to be chol, but midas halach berutzehen is going to be kodesh. Rabbi Akiva savar midas halach nimshecha bein bifnim bein b'chutz, midas yavesh lo nimshecha kol ikar. Rabbi Akiva, who argues and just says what? Again, they all agree that the overflow is not sanctified, but Rabbi Akiva says that the inside, that the yavesh itself, the flour that goes inside the kli is not sanctified either. He clearly holds what? That it's chol. What does he hold? That the inside of the kli, that the kli that was used to hold the flour wasn't sanctified at all. Therefore, bein, what's inside is not kadosh, bein, what's outside is not kodesh, as opposed to the one that holds the lach, that holds the shemen, it was sanctified inside and outside. Therefore, anything that's inside or anything that overflows will be sanctified. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Savar, no, the inside was sanctified and the outside wasn't sanctified of the lach. So now I understand what? I understand why the yavesh that goes inside is kodesh and the yavesh that overflows is not kodesh. I understand why the lach that goes inside is kodesh, but why is the lach that goes outside not kodesh? If the outside is what? Why is it kodesh if the outside is not sanctified? Like we explained, because again, whatever this place was originally inside, therefore it was sanctified by definition of being inside. And the yavesh that overflows was never inside, therefore it's not nekar. Okay, so that was again, sort of the way we explain the Mishnah. But it comes out again that according to everybody, comes out that the yavesh will be sanctified, well, not according to everybody. According to some, the yavesh will not be sanctified at all. But in general, the overflow of the yavesh will never be sanctified. Therefore, I don't say you could throw it out, but the yavesh will never be sanctified. The inside, even if it's not sanctified, it's still going to be used for the korban mincha. But if the yavesh overflows, that will not be sanctified. If the lach overflows, it will be sanctified. Either because what? Either because the outside is actually kadosh, and therefore it's touching the outside and it's becoming kadosh, or because it's displacing the lach that was already inside that was kodesh, and therefore the outside is kadosh as well. So that's what we're going to be discussing now. When we talk about, again, this midos, when we talk about this beirut sehen, which is kodesh, it's talking specifically of liquid measurements that overflow from this thing. Says the Gemara, says the Gemara, if you understand that the inside and the outside of the lach bowl are what? Even if you understand that the inside and the outside of the lach bowl are kodesh, and even if you understand that it's displacing that which is inside, says the Gemara, I don't understand. Why does it become kodesh anyway? There's a rule, according to this man de Amar, that something only becomes kodesh if the owner has intent to make it kodesh. The owner over here clearly has no intent to make the overflow kodesh. Whether the outside is kodesh, whether the outside is not kodesh, whether it's displacing the inside, whether it's not displacing, even if I would just pour it into the inside and everybody agrees the inside is kodesh, there's another rule according to this man de Amar, which we'll see others argue with, that only that which the owner wants to make kodesh becomes kodesh. So how can you tell me that the overflow becomes kadosh ever? Lamaisa, the owner never wants to make the overflow kodesh. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Dimi, Bar Shishna Mishmei Rav, because again, he only wants to make that which he needs to be kodesh. He never needs the overflow. He just wants to use whatever shemen he needs or whatever wine he needs. He wants to make that kodesh. Says Gemara, Amar Rav Dimi, Bar Shishna Mishmei Rav, Zodomeres Klisharis Mekach and Shalom Midas. You clearly see from here that a klisharis can be mekadesh the utensil, or it can be mekadesh the stuff you put into it, even if you have an intent not to do so. Ravina Amar Le'olam Em L'chach Klisharis Ein Mekach and Elamidas. So that's one opinion. One opinion.
Who's mekadesh the kli then? The kohen?
The klisharis is mekadesh by the kohen. The kohen is mekadesh the klisharis.
Even if the owner doesn't make
No, 1 second. There's two things. The kohen is mekadesh the klisharis. We said that the klisharis we're talking about before, that the one for lach, again, it was a machlokes, but let's just assume the regular opinion that for lach, the Beis Hamikdash, the kohen would actually be mekadesh the inside and the outside of a lach. Fine.
They anointed it to mekadesh it.
Who did?
Didn't they originally anointed it?
When they anointed it, they were mekadesh it. When they took the one for the yavesh, again, there's a machlokes. Did they anoint the whole thing or not? Let's just say that they anointed.
Originally, in other words, that kli
Originally, that is always hekdesh. It's always anointed.
Why do you have to redo it every time? Why does a bal bus gives a korban? He has to make it kodesh.
He's not. Who said he's no? We're not saying that he's doing it again. Midas halach kadosh lifa. No.
He's thinking there's already kodesh inside.
So the Gemara is saying no. The Gemara is not arguing. The inside of this, according to everyone, the inside of a lach thing is kodesh. The point is that now the Gemara is suggesting that it's possible to say that even though the inside is kodesh, it's not like tum and tara that the second it touches it, it becomes kodesh. If the guy has in mind that I don't want what I'm pouring in here to become kodesh, it doesn't become kodesh. Therefore, by definition, if you're going to tell me it's not like tum and tara, you're assuming tum and tara, as soon as you touch it, it becomes kodesh. No. The Gemara is suggesting, according to this mandamar, that when you pour it in, it doesn't automatically become kodesh unless you have in mind, I want what I'm about to pour in to become kodesh. What does he have in mind that he wants to become kodesh, what he pours in? Only the stuff that he's going to need for the mincha. That which he's not going to need for the mincha, whatever extra oil he happens to pour in, he wants to take it home with him. He doesn't want it to become kodesh. Says the Gemara, you see from here, you can't do that. Like Rabbi Black is saying, once it's kodesh, whatever goes in there becomes kodesh, and therefore that's why it's kodesh. Says the Gemara, no. The Gemara says you don't have to learn like that. You could say Eina Chanami that it depends on the mindset of the guy. Then why is the overflow kodesh? At the end of the day, even if the whole thing is kodesh, even if the outside is kodesh, even if the inside is kodesh, why is the overflow oil going to be kodesh if it depends on his mindset? They made a gezerah. What's a gzeira? Says the Gemara, Ravina Amar, La'olam ein melachach klisharis ein mekach and elamidas, ugzeira shemer yomu motziin mi klisharis echol. Because what's going to happen? Yes, it's dependent on the das. But what happens if we're going to pour oil in here and I'm going to be watching? Because it's cool. I want to come to BAYT Hamikdash. I bring my son. Now I want to watch. So I see you pour your oil in there. It overflows. I see you take out your flask, whatever you got. You take the leftover oil that overflows. You put it into your flask and you take it home. Now, you know and I know as a Kohen that that's okay. Because we know that when it comes to this, well, we didn't know it was okay. That's exactly for people like you who know. I'm not saying for people like you who would say that's ridiculous. Of course it becomes Kodesh. So I know and you know now that we learned the Menachos, that it doesn't necessarily become Kodesh. But the average guy is going to say, okay, it's not just by Mincha. Anytime I bring anything to the BAYT Hamikdash, and it becomes all the extra I can take home with me. Everything I can take whatever I want. And that's not true. It's dafka here by the Mincha where we're saying that the overflow is not necessarily Kodesh, if you hold like that. But now everybody's going to think that anytime you have anything that puts into a kli sharis, usually things that go into a kli sharis become kodesh. Here, for whatever reason, again, we're saying it's not becoming kodesh. So if a guy's watching, he's going to say, oh, look, you could take chol out. So I know and you know that there's an exception here by the mincha. But gezerah, because people might think that anytime something goes into a kli sharis, whatever you don't use, you can then go ahead and not make a chol. You can keep a chol. Gezerah, we're going to make a chol. We're not going to let you take it home, even though mitzad adin, it's really chol.
The guy can be really mad at the Kohen for overpouring. He can see the guy as almost taking advantage.
Who said the Kohen's overpouring? Maybe you're pouring. Who said the Kohen's pouring the oil in? You could pour in it. Maybe, I don't know. Who said you can't put in your you can't pour in?
It's okay if you're pouring it. Then you're no. Is it anything
You
that
don't
I'm
know what
pouring?
you're
It's gonna be
But the
anyway.
point is
You know
that
what
you
you're
might
doing.
think that you could take home the leftovers. Really, mitzad adin, you could take over the leftovers because your kavan is I only want to be mekadesh that which I'm pouring. Says the Gemara, even the leftovers you can't take over. If you overflow, if you make a mistake and you overflow, you can't take it. Somebody else might be watching and say, oh, next time I have my korban and I have a little bit of extra, I could take it home with me. Says the Gemara, it's very nice. There's only one problem. Mosiv Reb Zera, we see sider es halechem v'es habazikin la'achar Shabbos v'hikter es habazikin b'Shabbos psula. This is very interesting. When did they used to switch the lechem apanim? When did they switch the lechem apanim? Every Shabbos. Shabbos morning they would come, they would take the old lechem apanim, they would take it, they would eat it, they would take the bazikin, the spoons of levona, of the incense, they would take it and they would burn it on the mizbeach, then they could eat the 12 breads, and at the same time, right, at the same exact time, they would put in the new 12 breads, the new 2 spoons of levona, and it would stay there till next Shabbos. Let's say for whatever reason, something happened, and they didn't replace the bread on Shabbos, and they replaced it on Sunday. So, seemingly, what's the halacha? We know that we have lina by every single korban, that if you do it past its time, you let it go past its time, it becomes pasul. Over here, what would you say the time frame of a lechem is? You would say the time frame of a lechem apanim is 7 days. From the time you put it on one Shabbos till the time you take it off the next Shabbos. If it would go past the next Saturday night, if it would sit on the table for the entire Shabbos day and then into Saturday night, that would be lina. Right? So what happens over here? Over here, you didn't remove it until after Shabbos. You arrange the new one after Shabbos, and then you burn the old. So then, psula. So what's happening over here? You need to put the 12 breads and the 2 spoonfuls of levona on the table on Shabbos, and remain till the following Shabbos, when the levona is burnt. What happened over here? Over here, you didn't arrange the lechem on Shabbos, you arranged it on Sunday. And then what happened? Then you burnt the bazikin the following Shabbos, psula. What do you do here? Keitzad yaseh, yanichenu l'Shabbos haba. So what do you do? It sounds like you actually removed the other lechem, and it's not clear to me, but it sounds like you removed the lechem as you were supposed to on Shabbos. Therefore, that lechem is fine. What do you do now with the lechem that you put on Sunday?
You didn't replace it, basically.
Well, you didn't replace it, basically. So the lechem that you took off, you take off the bazikin that was there for the whole week, you burn it, the incense, now you can eat the lechem that was on the table. But what do you do now with the new lechem? Well, what's the problem, Rabbi? Well, I put it on Sunday. Okay, so take it off next Shabbos. You can't. Because even though you can't go more than 7 days, it needs to be on there for 7 days.
The location of the previous one is also removed.
Well, now, so again, it sounds like that the other lechem was removed, but now this lechem that you put on Sunday comes the next Shabbos, and you want to like get back into the cycle, but now you're stuck. It's not 7 days. You put it on Sunday. It's got to be 7 days me'es le'es. That's what the Gemara sounds like. It's got to be whatever, 7 times 24 hours. So what do? So now you're stuck. You can't put on the new one because you can't take off the old one because it hasn't been there on 7 days. But if you leave the old one on now for another day, or another 2 days till next Shabbos, now it's going to be on for 13 days, and then it's going to be a problem. So what do? Keitzad yaseh, yanichenu l'Shabbos haba, shafiluhu al shulchan yamim rabim ein bekach klum. Very interesting. What's the Gemara saying? The Gemara is saying that in this case, which is obviously b'diavad, what do? You leave it on there from Sunday till not that coming Shabbos, the following Shabbos. So it'll be on there for 13 days, then you get back into the cycle. Can you eat it on the 13th day when you take it off that Shabbos? Can you eat it? Yes. Why? Because the clock doesn't start till the following Shabbos. So it's very interesting. It ends up coming out that you basically have 6 days where the lechem apanim is there, but not really there. You end up eating, again, one less lechem apanim, right? Because now the lechem apanim that you took off this Shabbos, right? This Shabbos you took off the lechem apanim, you didn't replace it. So now the following Shabbos, 7 days later, you're not eating any lechem apanim because that lechem apanim that you put on Sunday is only been there for 6 days. So you can end up eating less lechem apanim this year because you're skipping 1 week. But now, 13 days later, the following Shabbos, you might think, well, now when I replace it, I can't eat that lechem apanim. Why not? Because it's lina. So the Gemara, that's not lina because it only started the count from the second Sunday, and the first 6 days that it was on there didn't really count as being. It was on there, but it wasn't really on there. Okay, what do we need this for our purposes for? Well, what's somebody who's watching going to say? Somebody who's watching from the outside who sees this lechem apanim being removed and staying there for 13 days is going to say there's no din of lina anymore. Why do you make a gezerah when you have a little bit of overflow of oil and say, oh, even though really we know that it's chol, it's not kodesh, because the outside is not chodesh, right? According to that man Amar, why do we say that you can't do it, you can't take it home? Because people might think that anytime somebody's in a klishares, you can take home the leftovers. Why don't we make the same gzera by lechem apanim? Anybody who sees the lechem apanim on there, they know that you didn't change it that coming Shabbos. They're going to see 6 days later that nobody changed it, and they're going to see, oh look, you could leave lechem apanim for 13 days. I could leave my korban for 4 days, even though the Torah tells me only 1 day. What's the pshat? Says the Gemara, Moshe Rav Zira again. Maybe people will think that again you can leave stuff in the klishares for a long time. Says the Gemara, panim achutz karamis, panim lav kuliyama yade, chutz kuliyama yade. Where are we doing this whole thing with the mincha? In the azara. A lot of people watching. Where are we doing the whole thing with the lechem apanim? Inside. It's inside of the kodesh. Who's watching? Just some kohanim. Kohanim know better. They're not Amiyaretz. They know better. They're not going to start making deductions. They know that the only reason we're leaving it for 13 days is because we made a mistake and we didn't replace it as we should have last Shabbos. But they're not going to start deducting that any time now you bring a korban, you can have lina and the whole parsha of lina and parceling a korban that stays overnight. It's all in the garbage. That we're not worried about because it happens privately. But enachanami, if the lechem apanim shober was on the outside in the azara, then we would say that you can't eat that lechem apanim either, and we'd have to be choshesh. We'd have to be worried that people would get the wrong idea and make the wrong conclusions from it.
Why is it called a showbread if it's inside?
So I think you could still, people still saw it, and I don't know where the shechem, I don't know, showbread is. I don't know if that's a real definition.
Maybe they ate it outside the Kodesh.
I don't know if that's the real definition. Showbread. I don't know where that came from. Kenes kashas from English definition. I don't know where the
lechem. But it's also
lechem.
a nace that it would kept fresh for a
Correct.
week, right?
So it sounds like this would stay fresh for 13 days.
Expecting a nace to happen?
It sounds like every week they were just expecting it to be fresh every year.
They're pushing a miracle.
What?
Whatever's under it gets fresh.
That's what it sounds like. I don't know if they were pushing. You're saying they were pushing the miracle for another 6 days.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a...
Yeah, I hear. It's interesting.
Maybe this is why Yenim ended up getting Sunday. Just up there.
I think that's why Yenim got Sunday. Why? What do you mean?
They didn't know how to...
They forgot the showbread. Okay, they left it there 1 week, too much in the oven. Tanan Hassam. Okay, good. So now we're good. So now we go back to what we said. Let's assume again that whether it's a gzeira or whatever it is, you can't take the leftover stuff that overflows, right? We said you can't take the leftover stuff that overflows. Assuming that it's assuming that we say that it's the midas halach. The midas halach, Beirut and Kodesh. We said the midas hayavesh, which is never inside, that's not going to be Kodesh. And now we have the leftover, again, the leftover flour that overflows you could take home with you, seemingly. The leftover oil and shemen, the shemen and the wine. We said the leftover for whatever reason, whether it's a gzeira, whether it actually is Kodesh because it displaces, whether it touches the outside, whatever the reason is, the leftover shemen and the leftover yayin you cannot take home with you. That's considered to be, again, Beirusei and Kodesh. What do you do with it? Mosar nesachim, that's the leftover, says the Gemara. Leketz hamizbeach. Ketz is dessert. It goes as dessert to the mizbeach. So what does that mean? You throw the wine and the oil on the mizbeach? No. What do you do with it? You sell it. You take the money. What happens when there's no korbanos on the mizbeach? What do? You got to bring olas. The mizbeach always got to be busy. It's always got to be burning animals. Fascinating. So you bring an ola. So if you have leftover oil or wine that overflows, you gather that, you sell it, you take the money, you buy olas, and you bring the olas as a dessert to the mizbeach whenever it's not busy burning other obligatory or voluntary korbanos. Says the Gemara, my mosar nesachim. What's the mosar nesachim? Rav Chia bar Yosef Amar Beirut Midos, like we said, you go ahead and you sell, and that's what you sell in order to go ahead and get the dessert. Says Rabbi Yochanan Amar, now he might agree with Rabbi Chia that you sell the leftover, but it doesn't sound like it. He sounds like we're not talking about the leftovers from the overflow. I don't know if we sell that. What do? Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Okeos Sheshaninu. What do we sell in order to get the money to be able to buy the olas as a kates and mizbeach? Nothing to do with what we're talking about now. Nothing to do with the overflow oil and wine. What is it? The leftover flour that we have from the following situation. Hamakabal of the suffix lasos me'arba v'amdu b'shalosh yasbek me'arba. Let's say I'm a businessman and I come to the mikdash, and Baruch Hashem I get the business of the mikdash. And what do I say to them? I say to them, I'm going to sell you, and I get my money in advance. You pay me in advance. I'm going to sell you flour. I'm going to give you 4 sa for a sela. I'm going to charge you 25 cents a sa of flour. We agree on it, good. The price then changes. And before I deliver the goods to you, what happens? The price of a sa goes up, and now it's 33 cents per sa. Therefore, if you would give me a sela now, what would you get? You'd only get 3 sa. So the mikdash is basically, based on today's current prices, the mikdash is getting 1 extra sa, right? Because again, it paid a seller for 4. Today, if it bought for a seller, it would only get 3. Therefore, based on today's prices, it's getting an extra sa. What happens? Yaspek me'arba. I, the seller, lose out. And I can't charge you now. I got my money already. I can't charge you now, since there was a transfer money, there was a kin, and I can't now charge you and say, no, now the going price is 3 per seller, 33 cents each, therefore you got to give me more. So now the Beit HaMikdash, based on today's prices, has an extra sa. Because if it took $1 today, it would only get 3 sa. It got 4 sa for $1. The seller, assuming it's $1. Therefore, that extra sa that it got for buying it when it was quote-unquote cheaper, that extra sa is considered to be extra and needs to now sell it, take that money and buy olas. And unfortunately for the seller, for me, it works the other way as well. If the price goes down, I don't get a refund. Ilocha says the Gemara, Mishalosh ve'amdu mi'arba, if we originally go and the price of it falls, let's say I originally sold it to you for 33 cents each and we shake on it and you give me money, 33 cents a pound, and now it goes to now it goes to 25 cents a pound. So now I say to you, what? Please, you know what? You have to I have to give you back the money. If the price of flour falls, so the hekdesh now pays the new lower price. I have to give them back money. So again, if the price of flour goes up, doesn't matter. Hekdesh still gets whatever they originally paid for. If the price of flour goes down, I got to refund them the difference. Why? Sheyad hamikdash al yona. Because the yad of the mikdash is al yona. So whether it's extra flour that they got based on today's prices, because they got a good deal at the time, or if they're getting back some extra money now because the price of flour went down, either way, whatever it is, that money, or that flour which they're then going to sell for money, that money is used to buy olas as a kates to the mizbeach. Totally different than anything we were talking about. Tani kavasi Rabbi Chia bar Yosef, Tani kavasi Rabbi Yochanan, we're just going to have exactly the same thing. Tani kavasi Rabbi Chia bar Yosef, Beirutze midos halalo mahayu osin behen. So first of all, we're just going to say, in terms of this overflow, it's not so much that they sell it right away. There's actually one step before them that we're missing. You have the overflow. It's kodesh. What do we say you do with it? You sell it, you take the money, you buy olas. However, there's one step before it. If you have the overflow, and there's another zevach today, why does it have to be today? Because if you don't use the oil today, what happens to it? It becomes pasul with lina. If there's another zevach that you're going to bring today, or your friend's going to bring today, and you want to give it to him, and he wants to use this overflow oil from your korban, that's okay. V'imlanu yifselu belina. But if there's nothing else to do with it today, then what? And it stays overnight, it becomes pasul. V'imlav, again, so if it's not going to be used today, and you're able to get rid of it today and sell it, then makitzin behenes hamizbeach. That's what we said. V'keit zemahu, what is it? Olos, habasol l'sham, ve'oros l'kohanim. So again, you have the overflow oil. You have a few choices to do with it. Either you can use it now for another korban today, you can give it to your friend for another korban today. You should try not to let it go overnight, or else it's going to be pasul. If you can't give it to your friend, or you can't use it today, you should sell it to somebody else who will use it today. Then you'll take that money. That money is considered to be money from the overflow oil. That money needs to be used as a dessert for the mizbeach. What does that mean? You buy olos. And again, the Gemara says, even though you're using it as a dessert for the mizbeach, you might think, what? You have to burn that entire ola? It says, no, you treat it like a regular ola. The basar goes on the mizbeach, but the oros can go to the kohanim. Tani kavasi Rabbi Yochanan, makabel of l'savik, slasus me'arba, v'amdu mishalosh mitzavik me'arba, mishalosh v'amdu me'arba, mitzavik me'arba, sheyad ha'ekdesh al yona, v'zeo sheshinu mitzvah nesachim, l'kait hamizbeach. He says that that's not the most nesachim. He says it's nothing to do with the overflow oil. It has to do, again, the second opinion that we just quoted, has to do with the extra money. The extra money that you saved as the mikdash, either from paying less or from getting a refund, that money the mikdash needs to use in order to buy kates hamizbeach, in order to buy desserts.
You don't have to sell it to your friend, you can just give it to your friend.
You can give it to him, but again, if not, if you want to sell it to somebody else, you sell it, that money which you sell, you need to go ahead. It's not so little oil, maybe it's a lot of oil, a lot of wine, who knows? Says the Mishnah, we have 10 more minutes, but we'll do quickly. Says the Mishnah, Kol korbanas hatzibor. I only had 30 minutes in the first stuff, so imagine, I'm already 35 minutes. Imagine I finished. I didn't. Kol korbanas hatzibor vayachitun in nesachim. Now, we're going to talk about nesachim. What are nesachim again? By now we're already on Sadi Amid Beis, we're almost up to 100. So nesachim can either be a minchas nesachim, the korban mincha, or it could be the wine libation. We'll see that for most of the Mishnah here, it's seemingly talking about both the korban mincha and or the wine libation, except in one situation we'll see. Kol korbanas hatzibor vayachitun in nesachim. Anytime you bring a korban, whether it's a private korban or a public korban, you need a mincha and yayin. Chutz min, except for habechor v'hamaiser, v'hapesach, v'achatos, v'asham. Except for these things, the bechor, the firstborn, the maiser, the korban pesach, achatos, and an asham, you don't need to have nesachim. And I'll give away the Gemara a little bit. The Gemara is going to say why these specifically, because these are not voluntary korbanos. It's only voluntary korbanos that you bring a nesachim with. Obligatory korbanos you do not bring a nesachim with. Except, there's an exception, ela shechataso shel mitzora v'ashamo, as we mentioned just before. The chatas we didn't talk about. We talked about the asham, and the mitzora needs to bring a chatas and an asham which are obligatory. Therefore, using that rule, obligatory korbanos should not need a mincha and or yayin with it. Says the Gemara, that's an exception where the asham of the mitzora and the chatas of the mitzora actually need to have the obligatory, even though they're obligatory, they still need to have a mincha and wine with them. Says the Gemara, where do we know this from? So I'll read you one pasuk, which talks about by the korban mincha, by the minchas nesachim and the yayin nesachim. The pasuk says, "V'asisem ishel Hashem olah, o zevach." If you bring an olah or a korban, lifale neder o bin dava. The Gemara is going to learn from that. In order to go ahead with a neder or a dava, the Gemara is going to learn from there. You see, it's talking about specifically what? Voluntary stuff. O b'moadechem. You'll see that's some connection with bringing nesachim with the korbanos that you bring on the moadim. Lasos reach nichoach l'Hashem min habakar or min atzon. You'll see that's something to do specifically only when you bring bakar or tzon. So let's see all these things. Tana Rabbanan. Vasisa mishel Hashem yachol kol haola liishim yetal nisachim. It's not learning an ola specifically. It says ola in the general sense. Anything you bring to the mizbeach. You might think anything you bring to the mizbeach needs nisachim, even obligatory korbanos, afilu mincha, and even a mincha needs another mincha to come with it and needs wine to come with it. Talmud lomar ola. Only something that's an ola. Only something that's specifically brought on the Mizbeach needs to have a thing with it. And since a mincha is not fully brought on the Mizbeach, it doesn't need to be accompanied by a mincha slash yayin. Okay, but how do you know to exclude these obligatory ones? These obligatory ones are brought on the Mizbeach. Shlamim inayin. How do you know that a shlamim needs a mincha, that a shlamim needs the nesachim? Talmud lomar zevach. A zevach, toda minayin, and it's unclear why it doesn't include toda also. Talmud lomar o zevach. So we know that a shlamim and a toda, those need to have what? Those need to have nisachim with them. So why do the obligatory ones not need nisachim? Says, as I told you, Yachol shani merabe marbe af bechor meiser pesach v'chatas asham talmud lomar. What's this pasuk telling you by nisachim? It's only the mincha and or the yayin, and the yayin that's poured is lefale neder o bin dava. Ba bin neder unidava taon nisachim. Sheino ba bin neder unidava ain taon nisachim. Only things that again are voluntary need to have nisachim. That's why shlamim, which is voluntary, a toda, which is voluntary, those things have nisachim. The pesach, the bechor, the meiser, the chatas, and the asham, which are obligatory, do not have to have nisachim. And again, the mincha, which is not an ola, which doesn't go on the mizbeach, except for the kmitza, but the mincha doesn't go on the mizbeach, does not need nisachim, does not need wine or another mincha with it. Mashma lahotzi aselu. So again, we exclude these. This pasuk is telling me what's included. So l'neder ol l'nedava is included in the nesachim, the mincha slash yayin. It excludes the things which are not l'neder ol l'nedava, which are obligatory. Otzias chovos habos machmas haregel b'regel. The Gemara says something very interesting. Umayniu olas ru'iya v'shal mechagiyah. You just said that shlamim are voluntary, and therefore they needed them. Says the Gemara, olos are voluntary, but there actually are certain types of olos and certain types of shlamim which are obligatory. Which ones? When you go to the regel, now again, you're supposed to go to the regel. So when you go to the regel, it's obligatory to bring an ola with you and a shalmei chagiga with you. So now how do you treat those things? So if they're obligatory, then what? They should not require nesachim. Says the Gemara, Talmud lomar o b'moadechem. So the pasuk says o b'moadechem, that even though based on this rule of obligatory korbanos not needing nesachim, you would not need nesachim for the ola re'iyah and for the shalmei chagiga. O b'moadechem includes that which would have been excluded otherwise, and therefore they require nesachim with them. Kol haba b'moadechem to nesachim mashma lahavi yaselu. It includes these. Now we have another one. Avi seirei chatas hoelu ba'in chovas beregel. Now we know that a chatas, what? A chatas is a what? A chatas is a obligatory one, therefore it should not need to have a thing. But obviously chatas holuba in chova beregel. The only problem is that there is a certain chatas, a soyer chatas is brought as part of the korban musaf on the regel. So on one hand now you're stuck, because now the chatas on one hand is obligatory. On the other hand it's what? It's similar to the olas riyah and the shalmei chagiga, where what? Where it's brought on the regel as well. You just told me o b'moadechem, which mean that the chatas that's brought on the regel should actually need nesachim. Talmud lomar v'chi taseh ben bakar. Ben bakar bechlal haya. Why does it have to mention v'chitase ben bakar? What are you adding ben bakar? It's talking about all animals. What are you adding ben bakar? Lama yatsa lahakish alaf. Ma ben bakar miyuchad ba beneder unedava. Af kol ba beneder unedava. So it's no. It needs to be something that has the potential to be brought. That which is brought again. That which has the only obligatory ones that have nesachim with them b'moadechem that are included are those which have the potential to be voluntary. That means in general, shlamim can be voluntary. Olas can be voluntary. Therefore, again, even though here they're obligatory, therefore they should not need nesachim. Since you have a special pasuk, oh, b'moadechem, you include those that they need nesachim, even though they don't usually need nesachim. However, a chatas, which is never going to be voluntary, it's always obligatory, that is not included in O b'moadechem, and therefore the chatas, even though, again, it's brought on the regel, b'moed, it's not included in O b'moadechem, it's excluded from what? It's maybe included by O b'moadechem, but then it's excluded by ben bakar, and therefore, again, like a regular chatas, it would not have nesachim. Finally, says the Gemara, Lasos reach nichoach l'Hashem, min ha-bakar u'min hatzon, ma tamud lomar. What are you telling me? Mina bakar min hatzon. Levishanemar ola shomeani afilu ola sa'of b'mashma. Why do you have to end the pasuk by saying that you only bring the sachim min habakar min hatzon? It's obvious. We're talking about animals. We're talking about animals, and we just established that obligatory animals you don't bring the sachim. You only bring the sachim for voluntary animals. And then there's an exception that obligatory animals that come as part of the regular, except for the chatas, the obligatory animals like the shalmei chagiga and the olas riyah, those will also get the sachim. We have to end the pasuk by saying it'll be re'eh nichoach bakar hatzon. What do you have to end that for? What are you adding? Because you might have thought what? You might have thought that if I bring a voluntary oath, an olas ha'of, I need nesachim. Says the Gemara, Talmud lomar min habakar u'min hatzon. Birds are not part of this nesachim. You don't bring birds, even if they're voluntary, and therefore you would usually need to bring, for a voluntary korban, you usually need to bring nesachim. Since it says bakar hatzon, this whole parsha of nesachim only refers to animals, not to birds. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonasan Omer Eino Tzarech. He says you don't need this pasuk min habakar min hatzon to exclude birds. I already know it from the pasuk itself, from earlier in the pasuk. What did it say? Harehu Omer Zevach. It says that it only comes from Zevach. You only bring this mincha when you have a Zevach. A Zevach is an animal, it's not a bird. Ve'of Eino Zevach. Imkein matamud lomar min habakar min hatzon. So Rabbi Yonasan, who doesn't need min habakar min hatzon to exclude oaf, what does he need to min bakar min hatzon for? Lefisha nemar, because it says in the beginning of Vayikra, Adam ki akriv mikem korban lashem min habehema min habakar min hatzon. When I bring a behema, when I bring a korban from the bakar and from the tzon, yachol ha'omer harei alai ola. If you just read the first pasuk in Vayikra, what would you say? If I go home and I say harei alai ola, I swear to take an ola, I take a neder to take an ola, what do I need to bring? Well, if I only read the first pasuk in Vayikra, what do I think? Min habakar min hatzon. I need to bring both. Therefore, we need this pasuk to come ahead and say that when you make harei alai ola, you don't say both, yavi mishnehem, talmud lomar min habakar o min hatzon, ratza echad mevi, ratza shnayim mevi. That this extra pasuk min habakar min hatzon is needed to teach me that when I make harei alai ola, I don't go based on the beginning of Vayikra min habakar min hatzon, the bakar and tzon. Rather, it's min habakar o min hatzon. I can bring both if I want, but I'm only required to bring one or the other. We'll pick up here tomorrow. Shkoyach.